What if the reality that you're in is something you created? Your fears, your ambitions, your beliefs, all projected onto the world around you. Have you ever stopped and asked, what programming is creating all of this around me? And if I were to figure out the programming, the software, that I could potentially change my whole reality? Well, if you haven't, it's a damn well time you do. So, did I build my software or did I inherit it? Is the golden question. And if you didn't build it, then you might be living out someone else's design. That question sent me traveling the world, interviewing creators, visionaries, entrepreneurs, people who don't just live inside reality, they shape it. And if anyone would have the answers to how we shape our reality, it would be these creators. And one person stood out to me. Naveen Jain. At one point, his net worth rose to over $8 billion US. He was given clearance to mine the moon for resources, helium-3, rare minerals, all for fusion energy. And now he's digitizing the human body using RNA and AI to decode biology, to predict disease before it appears, and to transform and optimize the body at a cellular level. The proof may be in the pudding, but his son is also currently leading a billion-dollar tech startup company. And I have the question, was this luck? Was this coincidence? Or was it programming? And I needed to understand how it is that he was programmed to achieve whatever he achieved.
Here I was on top of the moon. As I was talking about, we became the first company to get the permission to leave Earth orbit. We just got in the $2.6 billion NASA contract. And then my dad was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. I didn't even know he was sick, let alone he had a stage 4 cancer. And he was given 3 months to live. And unfortunately, that's all he got. And it really got me thinking that here I am trying to actually mine the moon for helium-3 for fusion resources. And we don't even understand on Earth the human body. And what really surprised me was that we couldn't detect his cancer early. What surprised me was that I had taken it for granted. As he was getting older, I just took it for granted. Of course, he's got a high blood pressure. He's got to take his blood pressure medicine. He's getting old. Of course, he's got a heart disease. Of course, he's got diabetes. Of course, he's gaining weight, right? It's all getting old. Without even realizing that, why is it that people actually are becoming sicker as they get older?
Every year, another billionaire says they're going to fix the world, but this wasn't a press release. This was personal. So how does a man go from mining the moon to rewriting biology? Was this ambition, or was this something running deeper underneath?
We can actually understand what changes in the human biology before people actually start to becoming sick. What changes in the human body that we can detect before people become diabetic, or people become heart disease, or people have depression, or people have anxiety, or people have Alzheimer's, or people develop cancer? Why can't we actually detect what's happening in the human body? And if we could, let's apply the framework. And I say, what if we can actually detect every single chronic disease before they happen? We should be able to diagnose them early. We should be able to prevent them, and God forbid, outright reverse them. So my first question was, what if we are actually able to solve this problem? Would it help 1 billion people? Answer is 8 billion of us, because every one of us is going to suffer through these age-related diseases.
Naveen was trying to decode the human body. I wasn't. I was trying to decode him, because if I could understand how he thinks, I might understand how he bends reality. What was the operating system running this man?
We grew up very poor. We didn't have a food to eat. We didn't have a place to stay. My father had a decent job in a government, and we shouldn't have to be poor. But in India, in a government job, the most of the money you make is not in your salary, but by taking bribe. And my dad decided that he didn't want to take a bribe. And that means we really had no money. And that allowed us to really rethink who we were. And what he was really teaching us was very simple thing. It is that if you live a life of integrity, if you live a life that's worth living without having to cheat, you could live a good life. And it didn't matter how little we had. We realized the one way we can get out of this poverty by simply being the best in whatever you do.
He grew up poor, no food, no safety net. His father refused bribes. But what was weird was poverty usually installs fear in someone. So why didn't it install fear in him? Could it be that watching his father reject shortcuts probably hard-coded him with a non-negotiable standard of living? Not survival, but just code. So I needed to see what his father and his mother installed, because there was only one other place that this could take me: our creators, our parents. Maybe there was some sort of hidden clue there.
It is really the fundamental problem comes down to is how the children are raised. That is fundamentally broken. They are raised to saying that your job is not to find a purpose. Your whole purpose in life to find a job, right? So instead of switching and say your job is to find a purpose, people say your purpose is to find a job. And that's really where everything starts to fall apart, is that people are not taught to find their obsession. Children don't do what you tell them to do. Children do what they see you do. You don't get to tell your children money doesn't matter and you need to have high integrity when they see you do things every single day simply to make money and cheat everyone out of their money. They realize that my dad is not trustworthy. My dad cannot be believed. What you really need to show is that everything you tell them, you become the role model. You actually show them what to do. And that is one thing we did very different from any other parent was we never told them what to do. We showed them what to do.
And then it hit me. As kids, we spend years like tape recorders, unconsciously absorbing these beliefs, these ideas about the world and who we are and who we should be, what success means and what's possible and what isn't. And not once do we stop and ask, why do I think this way? Or why am I driven towards this? Or why does my life look like this?
When my first company was wildly successful, my children were all 3 children under 10 years old. Dad did not sit at home. Dad started the second company to solve another problem. Dad started the third company. Dad goes on to the fourth company. We're going to go to the moon. Dad, you know nobody has ever done. This cannot be done. And they're seeing that Dad is now going out and making it possible. We became the first company ever to get a permission to leave Earth orbit. We got the law changed by United States. President Obama signed into the law that anything we bring back, we own. We became one of the 6 companies to get $2.6 billion NASA contract. Dad is turning 60. Dad says, I'm going to go solve healthcare because that's a massive problem. Dad, time to ride into sunset. You have had amazing success. Why do you want to do this? You're going to fail miserably. There is no one who can solve this problem. And they see Dad taking on this audacious idea and making it happen. Guess what happens? The children are looking at it and saying, my dad is not even that smart. If he can do it, let me show him how it is actually done. And they go on, take even more audacious ideas and solve them. Right? So we redefined when they were young, we redefined success for them. We told them that your success will never be measured by how much money you have in the bank. It will simply be measured by how many lives you improved. Your self-worth will never come from what you own. Your self-worth will come from what you create. And if you haven't created anything and you own a lot, then you're simply a parasite on humanity. So don't be a parasite.
So maybe somewhere along the way, he must have watched his parents break problems down, not panic, not react, but just dissect them pieces by pieces. And maybe that was the very program that he downloaded, a way of thinking, a way of being that later scaled into everything he built.
And I realized to solve this problem, there are 3 things that have to happen. One thing is we have to digitize the human body. And then next thing was, even if you digitize the human body, there's going to be so much data. You have to be able to process massive amount of data in a cost-effective way. And the third thing is, with all this massive data, you have to have an AI that will be able to make some sense of it. So we thought and said, okay, what's happening in the digitization of human body? And we saw the cost of digitization or sequencing the human body was coming down massively. So when we started the company 8 years ago, the cost of doing that for one single sample was $1,000. Took a deep breath and said, you can't help 1 billion people with $1,000. But look, it used to be $10,000. It used to be $100,000. In 3 to 5 years, it is going to come down to under $100. Today we sit here, it is $4.73. So even though we were 10 times optimistic, it turns out we were 20 times pessimistic.
But I was confused. The market's already filled with all these gut tests, microbiome kits. health dashboards. So what was different about Viome? What was he building? Was it something new, or was he just reframing the problem entirely?
There are so many smart people in this field. They're all trying to solve the same problem, but every one of them is asking the same question. I want to know about your genes. I want to know about your DNA. Now, my first question was, does your DNA actually change when people gain weight? So I asked the first question, hey, if I do my DNA testing today and I gain 200 pounds, has my DNA changed? Of course not. All right. But when I become diabetic, it must change. No. Well, when I become depressed, is it changing? No. Does it change when I get a heart disease? No. Well, after I die, it must change. Actually, no, you can still look at the DNA of dinosaurs. So if DNA can't even tell me that you're dead or alive, how will it ever tell me I'm becoming healthier or sicker?
This wasn't incremental, this was directional. He wasn't asking the same question differently. He was asking a different question entirely.
The reason most entrepreneurs fail when they are expert in their field is because they always say, I don't know how to do this. And that means this can't be done. In my world, when I am an entrepreneur, I don't know anything about any of the subject. I assume every problem can be solved. I just need to know what problem am I going to solve.
Was this discipline or conditioning? Was this vision or a script installed decades ago?
Every single person wants to know how to go from where they are to actually solving the problem that they want to solve. And they're trying to find the path from here to there. I think the best way to look at that stuff is to say, look, we are in this deep fog. In that fog, there's only visibility of 10 feet. That's all you can see. And your path at that point is simply to take steps to get to the 10 feet. And suddenly the 10 more feet will open up for you. And that is how entrepreneurs should look at it.
See, most people stop when visibility ends, and I'm prey to this also. But Naveen, he kept moving even when the outcome wasn't guaranteed, because maybe the program running under him didn't allow him to retreat.
Once we found out what is it that we need to do, then we start looking at how to do that. And I went through Stanford, MIT, all the places trying to find the technology, and finally found at Los Alamos National Lab, they were developing it for biodefense purposes, where the problem they were solving was actually very different. It's very similar. If there was a bioterrorism in our great country, how would we ever figure out what happened? The problem they were trying to solve was, they couldn't care less what was there in this biological bomb. What they cared about was, what is these organisms expressing? How is going to interact with the human body so they can create an antidote for it? Now, they did it for the purpose. I'm thinking, wait a sec, that's exactly the same problem for human diseases. So I managed to convince them to actually get the exclusive perpetual license of technology and created Viome.
And when I traced it back, past the companies, past the moon, past the billions, the key to his creation wasn't money. It was a father, a man who imprinted principle, responsibility, courage, a standard that did not bend. And that imprint echoed through everything Naveen built. So this is where things become a bit personal. To all the fathers out there, to the mothers, to those who are about to shape a mind, you're not just raising a child, you're installing a reality. And to those of us already grown, look back at the imprint placed on you. Was it scarcity, fear, obedience? Or was it abundance, integrity, conviction? Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Change the imprint and you change the trajectory of your whole reality. Rewrite the code and you rewrite your future.